Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for a moment of silence, we just hope that everybody made out okay, as well as we did, I think, over the severe storms that come through Maryland last night. So let's keep everybody in their prayers and hope everybody made out as good as what I think Kent County did. Thank you very much. Time will be allotted at the end of each meeting for the commissioners to receive comments from the public. We first of all have a public notice here, and I'll read. This is Code Home Rule Bill number 4-2023, introduced by Ronald H. Fithian, President of the Board of County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland. An act to amend Chapter 152, Taxation, Article Roman numeral 10, Residential Sprinkler Property Tax Credit of the Code of Public Local Laws of Kent County, Maryland. The purpose of this amendment is to extend the expiration date of a real property tax credit when a sprinkler system is installed. A hearing will be held on August the 22nd, 2023 at 10 o'clock a.m. in the Commissioner's Hearing Room, R. Clayton Mitchell Jr., Kent County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland. Citizens are encouraged to participate in the public hearing process. If you require communication assistance, please contact the County Commissioner's Office at 410-778-4600 and press 4 or visit Maryland Relay at www.marylandrelay.org no later than noon on Friday, August the 18th, 2023. A complete copy of the proposed legislative bills available in the Commissioner's Office, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and on the county's website at www.kentcounty.com/commissioners/draft legislation by order of the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Sandra M. Blackston, Clerk, and it was published in the Kent County News on 8/10/23. And to just to speak briefly about that, when we were mandated to do by the state to do the put sprinkler systems in all the new residential housing, it become a burden to the first-time home builders, and we have put a bill in place that's about ready to expire, which gives anybody that building a new home and having to put that sprinkler in there, that we forgive the first $5,000 of their property taxes in order to help offset the added burden. We have consent items, regular session minutes dated August the 1st, 2023. We have liquor minutes dated August 1st, 2023. We have closed session minutes dated August 1st, 2023. We have FY 2024 Critical Area Grant Contract Agreement and a Chestertown High School alumni raffle only, August the 13th, 2023. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. And we have special Class C licenses. St. John's Catholic Church, beer only, dated August 20, 2023, and Kent Cultural Alliance, beer and wine only, September the 9th, 2023. And due to the fact that these are our applications for alcohol license, they're in need of a public hearing. We will declare today our public hearing. Anyone that wants to speak in favor or against these two applications, please feel free to do so at this time. There being no comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve both as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. And we have a proclamation, which I think Commissioner Nickerson is going to read for us and Lucy Hughes, or you, someone in the audience, come forward, dear.
I'm going to bring a couple of them.
You help yourself and just introduce them when you get up here. Lucy Hughes is the Director of Communications for Choptank Community Health Systems. Have a seat right up front there.
I'm going to let these guys, this is Ben Cottle, here's our CFO.
Okay.
And Michelle LaRue is the Site Director for our Kent County offices.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to say a few words before we read this proclamation?
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank you, the commissioners, as well as the county, for welcoming Choptank Community Health to your community. We're excited to be here. We're excited to provide comprehensive health care to the citizens here of the county. Choptank Community Health has a history of over 40 years being in the community health space. We provide primary care, dental care, and behavioral health care. We're also in the schools as well, providing comprehensive health care to the kiddos as well. So we thank you for recognizing us today.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. The proclamation, National Health Center Week, August 6th through the 12th, 2023. Whereas the National Association of Community Health Centers initiative is set as community health centers. The roadmap is to a stronger America. They provide preventative and primary care to more than 30 million people across the country, with services tailored to the needs of the unique communities. And whereas together, they are the backbone of the nation's primary care system. Community health centers lower health care costs of $24 billion a year, reducing the rate of chronic diseases and stimulating local economies. And whereas Choptank Community Health is a federally qualified health center and one of 17 community-based health centers in Maryland, servicing more than 338,000 individuals, including those without insurance or the ability to pay. And whereas Choptank Health teams focus daily on the mission to provide access to exceptional, comprehensive, and integrated care to all. And whereas Choptank Health providers are not just healers, they are innovators who look for ways to address the factors that may cause poor health, such as poverty, homelessness, substance abuse, mental illness, access to nutritious food, and unemployment. They are a critical piece of healthcare system and collaborate with hospitals, local and state governments, and several organizations to improve health outcomes for people who are medically vulnerable, including those living in the most rural areas. And now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Kent County, do hereby proclaim the week of August 6th through the 12th, 2023, as National Health Care Center Week, and call upon the citizens of Kent County to join together in support of National Health Care Center Week. Signed, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Ronald H. Fithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, Member, and John F. Price, Member. Thank you very much.
And listen, we'll have a picture taken, but before we do that, if someone is in need of your service, where do they reach you, and how do they reach you? Is there a phone number? You have a place of business? And could you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Actually, that's one of the reasons why Michelle came. She's one of our site directors here in Chestertown. And so I don't know if you want to give the phone number.
So we have phone number, it's 443-215-5353. We can also be reached on our website, www.choptankhealth.org. All of our forms are on there for new patients. They can register on the portal for us to get access to their lab results, any visits they may need, any resources that they can't communicate via phone, they can communicate via the portal with our providers. So we have a lot of avenues that patients can go to reach us.
It's very nice, and we're privileged to have all kind of services, of which you are a very important one, but it's nice to get that information out sometimes so that people who might not be as aware as others have a chance to hear that, I think. So thank you all very much for coming in.
Thank you.
And if you'd like, we'll have a picture.
I have two things.
Yes,
to
ma'am.
say, because I think they're really important, and we have Superintendent Couch here. We're also in the schools. We are in Rock Hall with a community-based health center serving the citizens and the students down in Rock Hall. And any student that is in Kent County Public School System can take part, as well as the staff in the school system. So that's really important, and we're really excited about that. So thank you, Dr. Couch, for your help. And also, I think the last time we were here when Sarah spoke, and I should send my apologies, she's on vacation, so I drafted the next A team to come over. But we spoke about trying to find a place for our mobile health unit, and we have been successful thanks to Mayor Foster and the police chief here in Chestertown. We are parking the unit there, and we will be getting it up on the road in about a month. We'll have it out, so that will be able to reach all the outlying areas in the county. So we're really excited about that.
Very good.
Thank you all for your support, too.
Thank you. Thank you for the service you provide.
Thank you.
You want to have a little
Yeah, that'd be great.
photo?
No, don't get
I do not do pictures. Let's take a bunch, that way I'm sure to have everybody's eyes open in one of them. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tom, I think we have a public hearing that you're going to want to talk about.
With your permission, Mr. President, this would be a public hearing for Code Home Rule Bill 3-2023 for Arts and Entertainment District tax credit. This is the public hearing where we take comments. The vote on this is expected to take place on September 19th, which is a legislative day. So I'm going to read into the record the public notice of today's hearing. This is Code Home Rule Bill number 3, 2023, introduced by Ronald H. Fithian, President of the Board of County Commissioners for Kent County, an act to amend Chapter 152 Taxation to add Article 11, Arts and Entertainment District Property Tax Credit to the Code of Public Local Laws of Kent County, Maryland, for the purpose of authorizing a certain property tax credit for certain business entities that obtain certain new, improved, or expanded premises in a certain arts and entertainment district in Kent County, providing for the amount and duration of the property tax credit, authorizing the county commissioners of Kent County to provide by law for certain matters relating to the tax credit, defining certain terms, providing for the application of this act, and generally relating to a property tax credit in Kent County for real property located in a certain arts and entertainment district. A hearing will be held on August 8, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the Commissioner's Hearing Room, R. Clayton Mitchell Jr., Kent County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland. The agenda for the meeting will be published online 24 hours in advance of the meeting at kentcounty.com/commissioners/meeting-agenda. Citizens are encouraged to participate in the public hearing process. If you require communication assistance, please contact the County Commissioner's Office at 410-778-4600 and press 4, or visit MarylandRelay.org. A complete copy of the proposed legislative bill is available in the Commissioner's Office, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and on the county's website at kentcounty.com/commissioners/draft-legislation. This is by order of the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, through Saunder M. Blackiston, Clerk, and it was published in the Kent County News on July 27, 2023. With respect to testifying, these are our procedures. It is our desire that everyone who wishes to contribute to this democratic process is given a fair and uninterrupted opportunity to be heard. To ensure equal opportunity for individual input for the topic under discussion, certain rules must be followed by all persons who are to testify. The rules to govern our hearings are few, but are intended to guide our proceedings. The hope is that each person testifying will be self-governed, thereby contributing to fairness for all. The chair will remind anyone who testifies when he or she has violated the rules of the proceeding. Rule 1, please sign the testimony log if you desire to speak during the hearing. If you have not signed it yet, please do so now. Rule 2, all speakers must identify themselves and use the area designated for purposes of testifying, and will use the microphone. Rule 3, each person testifying will have 3 minutes for his or her remarks. Rule 4, the chair will maintain order via voice commands. Rule 5, stick to the issues at hand. Written comments will be accepted until this Friday, August 11th, 2023 at 12 p.m. noon by email, kentcounty@kentgov.org, or by letter addressed to the County Commissioners of Kent County, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, 21620. Mr. President, we would start with the Economic Development Director, Jamie
Jamie's
Williams,
here.
and she can give a presentation, and then she's here to answer any questions the commissioners may have, and then if there's anybody else who wishes to testify, they would testify after Ms. Williams.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This should be quick. So just a brief overview, and if there's any questions. The Chestertown Arts and Entertainment District was certified in 2015 under a program administered by the Maryland Department of Commerce and the State Comptroller's Office. The district encompasses 51 acres of the historic downtown area. It offers state and local tax abatements for qualified artists who create and sell their creative works in the district, and for property owners who build or renovate structures for qualified arts purposes. The county commissioners signed a letter of support in March 17th of 2015. This is the code home rule to enable the property tax credit to be applied. That did not get done back then, but we've only recently had an application. So now we need to take care of that and get that in order. So in accordance with the state regulations, the county can apply a property tax incentive on the construction or renovations, the increased assessed value of the qualifying property for up to 10 years, up to 100%. This legislation grants the full 100% credit for 10 years as advertised on the town website since the designation. Future applicants of approved properties going forward will follow the renewal designation. Percentages can be discussed with the county and the Arts and Entertainment District during the renewal process, which is coming up in 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have no one that signed up, Jamie, so anyone that failed to sign up that would like to speak for or against this piece of legislation, feel free to do so. Okay, with no one here to testify on either way, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. We're back in open session. Our first appointment is our District 36 delegation, Senator Stephen S. Hershey, Delegate J.A. Jacobs, Delegate Jefferson Grice, and Delegate Steve Aarons. Welcome. John,
We thought it might be a good idea and to ask all of you to actually come in and let's maybe get an update on what we're doing at the state level with any legislation, proposed legislation regarding the blueprint. And we also have some local issues that I want to talk about and ask your support on. Why don't we take the local issue real quick first? And it's been brought to my attention, because I sit on the Economic Tourism Board as a representative for the commissioners, that there's a residency requirement for someone to get an alcohol license. And thanks to Mr. Yeager, there's been some research, and there are some Attorney General opinions out there that I think that you all might be aware of that indicate that it might be unconstitutional. And I think what we would like to do is to clean it up on our end and ask that the state do the same on their end. And Mr. Yeager and I had a conversation last night about it, and I'm going to defer to him to maybe offer anything else at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner, Senator Hershey, and delegates. So, as you know, alcoholic beverage licensing is governed by the state code, the Alcoholic Beverage Code. And there's multiple sections of that. Some apply throughout the state, others are local sections. So for Kent County, the local section is 24, and 24-1401 says that sections 4103, 4104, and 4105 of the alcoholic beverages article apply without exception to Kent County. And 4103, 4104, and 4105 require at least one county resident on a liquor license. I think 4103 deals with partnerships. If there's a partnership, all partners have to be on the license, they have to be a resident. 4104 deals with clubs and corporations, and 4105 deals with LLCs. And they say you have to have at least one member or one officer being a county resident. As you may remember, that law was changed a few years ago because it used to be a requirement that you had to be a resident for 2 years prior to the time of the application. And there was a court case that initiated in Tennessee that went all the way to the Supreme Court that found that the durational requirement, which is the 2-year requirement, was unconstitutional. So legislation was changed to provide that you just have to be a resident at the time the license is issued and then during the duration of the license. A couple of things are at play with respect to this. One is, on 2 occasions, the Maryland Attorney General has given an opinion based on the analysis of the court case in which the durational requirement was found to be invalid. The Attorney General has opined that if challenged, it's likely that the residency requirement during the time you have the license would be thrown out as well. Now, again, an Attorney General's opinion is just that. It's not the law. So the law is presumed valid until it's overturned. My assessment is I'm not going to disagree with the Attorney General on this, and I tend to think it's probably just a matter of time before there's a legal challenge to have the residency requirement thrown out. And the other thing that affects us, as Commissioner Price has mentioned, is that we have, I think, had concerns about economic development where businesses may not be able to meet that residency requirement. So we're looking to get some relief from that, and I think there's a couple of ways it could be done. One would be a statewide bill to eliminate the residency requirement altogether, which is set forth in 4103, 4104, and 4105. That would resolve it because our local legislation says we follow that without exception. So if the residency requirement is taken away there, that would cover it. Another possible way, which probably isn't as clean a way, but I think would work or could work, would be to amend 24-1401, which is the local legislation, and remove the without exception language. And then we say that 4103, 4104, and 4105 apply as modified, and we would just take out that residency requirement there. And then my recommendation would be, and I mentioned this to Commissioner Price, is I think one of the reasons why the residency requirement was in there is to have somebody local that can accept service of process or accept notice. Because if we have a licensee here and maybe there's a possible violation or we have to serve them notice, we need to know we have to get it in somebody's hands. So Similar to the state of Maryland has corporations and LLCs have a resident agent, and that resident agent doesn't have to be a member of the corporation, doesn't have to be a liquor license holder. We would have language that instead of having a residency requirement, it's just the entity would have to have a resident agent that's local. So we have somebody that can accept process. It's not necessarily a license holder or a member of the corporation. So those are my thoughts and opinions. Commissioner Price, anything you wish to add?
I think you pretty well covered it, and I'd like to hear, go ahead.
Yeah, we put that bill in last year. We wanted to do that for Queen Anne's County and Caroline County. They get back on us to do that. And this has been done in the past. We've had this forever as far as trying to do it. And part of your rationale for that was we wanted to keep the businesses local.
Right.
And we wanted to have the people local to promote our own counties, if you will. The AG called me about that and said that, you know what, you did something. This is my opinion. This is what we're going to do. And he indicated to me that he was going to try to fix that legislatively, as opposed to us all running around ripping it out, that would take it out that way. So I'm looking for some information back from their office to tell us how we're gonna manage that, because the intent of the bill, and, you know, he tried to tell me the story about all federally and all that, how precedent, and I kind of agree with it, but there were still some reasons we did that to keep the continuity, keep that in the community, because alcohol is a dangerous substance, if you will, and is something we need to regulate locally, and that's part of the reason for our liquor points and what have you. So that's still up in the air. I don't know if he's got any legislation submitted for that, but he did indicate that he was going to try to do that from his office.
And that would make sense, that, you know, as I mentioned, I think first choice would be have something statewide, so you have consistency, and I guess our concern is if we can't get it statewide, is there another way we can work around it? And I think part of the concerns about some type of local oversight, that having a resident agent may provide that, so we have somebody local we have to serve.
That takes us into another area
Yeah.
with this resident agent and what have you, and how that's all that legislation's been put forward on that in the past. That's a very difficult thing for us to vote for, because, you know, trying to find that resident agent is difficult no matter where they're located. I still think there's some value in what we did with that bill to keep it local. There's some controls and what have you. So I'd be real interested in seeing how he's gonna tweak that to try to keep the counties and hold the counties accountable for that, because, you know, we're taking more and more power away from the locals, and that, to me, isn't necessarily a good idea. We're trying to make that statewide, where every county in this state is a little bit different. And when you come to the Eastern Shore, we are certainly different than those in the middle part of the state. So there's some stuff I'd like to really review on that personally. I don't know about the rest of the delegation, but it would be interesting to see how he's gonna try to manage that, because it's relative to all of us.
I guess we'll stay tuned.
Also, I would communicate with Queen Anne's and Caroline as well, because that's obviously a priority for those two county governing bodies. So between the three of you guys, I would certainly have a collective voice if you could.
The AG has already communicated that to everybody. He's called up people talking about that. And again, you said it's his opinion, and it probably has some validity there. He wouldn't have done it. But it was kind of suspect that we've had these for at least the 15 years I've been involved in government. That type of bill has been there. We used to have it more strict in Queen Anne's County. I know that, and then we tried to open it up to within the state to try to keep it within local businesses.
Right, that is correct. It's the AG's opinion, it's not law. It would have to
Exactly.
have an act of the legislature, or the court would have to overturn it.
Correct.
And my only concern, basically, was the fact that after sitting on the board for the economic tourism and development, it's become very, very evident to me that it is hindering us here in this county as well. So, as far as folks coming in, whether they be local or not.
If you look at Queen Anne's County, they just recently opened it up to allowing chain, like Fridays, TGI Fridays and what have you. We just opened that up in our county, and that isn't necessarily the case in every county. So when you do that, it's real difficult to get a local person when a big corporation owns that liquor license.
Right. And that's our issue.
I agree.
Thank you. So, we thought it would be a good idea to get you guys to come in and maybe give us an update on what's going on at the state level, if there's been any talk about what we should expect about some relief from Kerwin and the blueprint, the cost?
I wish I could give you good news. I mean, unfortunately, the folks who passed the bill, the folks being the majority party who passed it several years ago, I think that I'm hoping there's some dissension. I'm hoping there's some disagreement within their party about whether or not they're going to continue to enforce Kerwin. Because obviously this isn't, it's not, a lot of Kerwin's not tenable for not just Kent County, but every single county across the state. And there's no exceptions. Every single county is going to struggle with Kerwin, and they're hearing it from their local people as well. So I'm hoping that they're not going to ignore those calls from their local school boards and their local governing bodies. I'm hoping they're going to do something, either kick the can down the road, but I'm hoping they do more than that. I'm hoping what they do instead is actually open up Kerwin, let's pass some legislation that's going to strip this thing down, because again, it's unrealistic. Especially unrealistic given the fact that I think that most economists are going to agree that things are going to change, we think, soon. Because the federal funding, that faucet's been cut off. I mean, I know that the state and some local governments are still spending some of that money. And it's starting to filter through the economy, and I think that's certainly helped us through COVID, helped us being, state and local government in regards to, consumer spending and sales tax and, but that's going to stop. And we don't really know. There's a lot of uncertainty. We had our first revenue write-down, for the state. Typically, our Board of Revenue estimates, they've done an outstanding job, being very conservative actually, in their revenue estimates throughout the entire Hogan administration. They've always underestimated revenues, and that made things pretty easy for us. Because those excess revenues carried over as a surplus every single year during the Hogan administration. Well, the first quarter of this year, we had our first revenue write-down. It's the first time that they've actually overestimated revenues. I hope it's not a trend. We're going to find out, I think, September 15th, I think, is the next announcement, and I'm hoping that hopefully we're going to be on board. I think the stock market's doing well, so that should bode well for capital gains. And I think consumer spending's still there, so hopefully our sales taxes aren't going to change. But if we start seeing revenues drop, that's going to change their decision on, hopefully it'll change the decision on, what their expectations are with Kerwin moving forward. But it'll certainly change their expectations on how much they're going to be willing to help fund Kerwin from the state's perspective, helping the local governments, not just Kent, but the other counties as well. From our perspective, nothing, our effort hasn't changed. We put a bill in last year. The only possible way that we could think of, we've been working on this thing for the past 4 or 5 years, since Kerwin passed, to figure out how we can give some relief to Kent County without impacting the other jurisdictions. And the reason why we do that is because they're not going to open up Kerwin again. They're not going to change the formula. We know that. That's something they're absolutely not going to do. Because they don't want to impact other jurisdictions. So we looked at the fact that Kent County is a rural county, that logistically it's very expensive to, have, as far as transportation, have to pick up kids in a rural area and take them to one high school, one middle school, and 3 elementary schools. And so so Kent County is very unique in that perspective. And the argument that we use is that the way the funding formula is, Kent County is at a disadvantage. It was unfairly drawn for a county like Kent County. And in their defense, you can't make everybody happy, unfortunately. And Kent County really drew the short straw when they drew those funding formulas. So they did not pass the bill last year. I had a conversation with our committee chair. He said, if you guys are willing to push up your property taxes some, you already maxed out your income tax, that again, we've heard these sort of commitments before that they didn't follow through. But they would certainly take a look at passing that bill that we put in last year. And I can't remember what that relief was. Do you guys remember what the fiscal note was on that? I don't remember off the top of my head. Shelley, do you remember? Something like that. It was just a few $1 million. Yeah. So we'll put it in again and just see what they say. We're real limited to what we can do. And this really is truly the only option. I mean, we looked at every single angle. We've done it over the last several years, like I said. And we'll put it in, we'll make the exact same argument that we made before. And it'll more than likely be jointly assigned to Ways and Means and Appropriations. On the House side, it'll go to E on the Senate side. And we'll try to get that bill passed on the House first. And then it'll be Senator Hershey's court to get it passed on the Senate side.
This is just an enormous issue, though, for there not to be anybody talking much about it. I mean, I think the counties are, you hear statements from them and articles that's being written from different, it's not just us although we're probably at the top of the list as far as what it's going to do to Kent County. And then to tell us that the one thing that we always struggle with is that wealth formula. Even before Kerwin was ever thought about, I was part of a board one time. We went to Baltimore and talked to the State Board of Education about the wealth formula. Nobody will talk about the wealth formula. We went to Annapolis this last year. We went to, we talked with the Speaker of the House. We talked to Senate President. We talked to Appropriations Committee Chair. Nobody will touch the wealth formula. And I got to tell you that I think the reason they don't want to talk about it is because they can't justify it. They can't tell you why. I mean, we've got 87% of our land mass in Kent County is zoned agriculture, which produces 14% of the budget. In one hand, they hold us up and say, oh, you're doing a great job of sustaining the agricultural industry in the state of Maryland. You're doing a fantastic job. And then on the other hand, they want to punish us because we're not raising the revenue that's necessary for their Kerwin issue or their. You look at what the capital chart, and this is, Shelley, correct me before I say that this is what the state provides, the amount of the percentage that the state would provide.
Yeah, right, percentage of funding for new school
Wycomico,
construction.
Somerset, you can throw Baltimore City in there with 96%. Worcester and Somerset, it would cost them no money to have a brand-new school built. And the reason I'm bringing this
This is
up.
a different discussion now. We're talking about.
It is different.
Okay, I got you. We shifted gears here. All right, just to make sure.
Well, in my opinion, it's all the same discussion. It's the cost of education to the county. And we have an operating budget and we have a capital budget, but it all revolves around the needs of education. So to me, it's not switching gears. It's all the same issue. And this wealth formula drives us into the ground every time in both cases. Worcester and Somerset would cost them not one dime to build a new school. And we've got some people from the education system here today, and we're going to talk about that on our agenda. They get their schools built, according to this chart, for free. They have no input in it. We have to pay 50% of it, which 50% of a $70 or $80 million school is a lot of money for a very small county of 20,000 people. Baltimore City, 96% gets paid by the state. We have to pay 50. They have to pay 4. I mean, when you look at those numbers, they're so compelling that I don't blame them for not wanting to talk to us about a wealth formula, because I don't think they can argue it. I think it would be embarrassing to if the people of Kent County, and I hope, and I brought this up last week, I hope we publish that in the paper, because that just shows how unfair this whole thing is. And when you look at I'll give you another quick example, and if you want to talk about switching gears and go back to the operating budget, right today, Kent County, we always hear about not enough money for education. We pay $3,300 more per pupil than our good neighboring Queen Anne's County does. That's before Kerwin. We pay $3,300 more per pupil than they do. So you would think, okay, with this Kerwin, they're going to have to catch up with us. Just the opposite. Through Kerwin, our increase is supposed to be 65%. Queen Anne's County will be 32%. that means when this is all over, we'll probably be paying $5,000 more per student than Queen Anne's County. I fail to see how anybody can argue that and say that that's fair. And again, I don't blame them for not wanting to talk about it. And the only answer we get is because, the reason for it was because the year before last, we decreased taxes by 1%. That's nothing but good stewardship of the county's money, in my opinion. But they want to throw that up as a reason why they're not going to help us. Well, this, and I'm just speaking for me right now, but this might be the first time that we just say no. I may just say no, because I'm not going to put Ronnie Fithian's name, and I've been here 25 years. I'm not going to put my name on something that I think will destroy this county and their way of living, our way of life, and the things that we've worked for all these years. I think it's unfair, and I think they deserve to come here and answer these questions to us. I'm not talking about you, gentlemen. I know you're up against it. That's clear, and we understand that, and I don't mean any of this negative towards the four of you. But someone in the leadership role deserves to come here and explain to us how this is anywhere close to being fair. And that's my 2 cents. But I do understand that what you're up against, and I appreciate what you do, and it's not meant to be adversarial to you all at all, and I don't mean it to be that way. But this thing is something that's just not going to, it can't work for us, and that I've given you my 2 or 3 reasons, but that's what it is. And I appreciate you listening.
Well, I would wholeheartedly support you if you don't, if you can't take care of every single piece of Kerwin. I will back you 100%. And this is the same message that I'm sending to all of, and you're not going to be the only one. Like I said, you'll see Montgomery County, you'll see Baltimore City, Prince George's County, Howard County. You'll see those jurisdictions doing exactly the same thing. This is not tenable for any county. Not 100% tenable for every single county. It's not.
Well, I guess what we're getting a little nervous about is we don't hear.
Well,
I mean,
the only thing
we read articles. Michael Hall sends us articles. He's looking into this stuff, reading every paper, and must read every paper in the state of Maryland, because he sends us all these articles, and we appreciate that very much. But I don't know where it's going, but it can't continue in this
The only leverage
direction.
the state has is they can intercept your income tax revenue. And if they do that, because they're going to cut your education funding, that's not their DNA, first of all. They're not going to do that. They're not. That's going to put them in a political position that they can never explain to anybody. That will make national news. They're not going to do it.
Well, we're getting ready to
And that's
find
not
out.
Probably get ready to make now.
I think we're getting ready to find out. I hope you're right, and I will, but I truly believe that I said I'm speaking for myself, but I believe in this case, I speak for the entire board, and we're close to just, if no relief comes and this thing nothing changes, you're gonna put us in the no column, and
We're
we'll
gonna try
wait and
everything we
see
can
what
to
other
get you
counties
relief.
follows us.
We can guarantee you that. We're going to put the effort in. We're outnumbered 2-1, and none of us are in the Democrat leadership, and the only leverage that we have is that we're going to play in the sandbox, and we're not going to be bomb-throwing jerks, right? That's the only thing we can give them. And if they ever put us in a position where they don't give us anything, then guess what'll happen? Then we're going to have, 39 Republicans in the Maryland House of Delegates that are bomb-throwing jerks, and they don't want that either. I mean, we can make a circus out of that place. So I'm hoping that they will at least listen to us, and they have. I mean, we're hoping they pass that bill this year. I mean, we're going to do everything we possibly can again to fight for that. And we did talk to Dr. Couch in regards to building the middle school. That is a huge ask. Granted, it's a lot easier to get capital money than it is operating money. However, when we're talking about a difference of a local share of $32 million compared to $1.3 million, it's like $32 million difference. However, in a capital budget, that's, from a state's perspective, that's not a huge amount to overcome. So, but we're going to put that ask into, and we'll we'll get the fight. I mean, we fight above our weight class every single day we're in session, you know, that's one of the things that we've gotten pretty good at doing. I just hope that they're not gonna put us in a position, especially with the, like I said, with the economy moving forward, and they have to start making cuts, and they're gonna start raising taxes that we're not gonna vote for, and we're not gonna vote for budgets that include increases in taxes, which I can't speak for them, pretty sure they won't either. I mean, they didn't vote for any of the budgets during the O'Malley administration. I'm hoping that doesn't change things in regards to whether or not they're gonna work with us. If it does, then that whole dynamic, I hope it doesn't. I've only served in the House of Delegates for the past 9 years, and I have a very good working relationship with the leadership in the Democrat Party. We work very well together. We work very well together in my committee. I hope that doesn't change. But you're right, we're not seeing any tangible results for Kent County right now. We've been putting these we've had these conversations for the last 5 or 6 years, and right now we're not seeing any movement. So we'll keep trying. I mean, we can only we can only keep pushing as hard as we can, and then I mean, if they do it, they do it. We can't put a gun to their head and just tell them, you know, either do it or else. You know, we're not in a position, unfortunately.
Commissioner, I might add, you know, each jurisdiction had to put in their plan recently on how they were going to implement Kerwin. The AIB board took a look at that, each of the plans. I believe that they accepted all of the draft plans. I've heard many counties have put in plans that doesn't implement everything in Kerwin, that they said, here's what we can afford to move forward with, and this is what we can try to do. Sitting in the Senate, I think that we're going to see somewhat of a Kerwin light come out of all of this, because there are enough counties that have said they can't implement this one-size-fits-all policy. And that's the problem with, you know, a lot of things that happen in Annapolis. It's one piece of legislation that they encompass 24 different jurisdictions, and they expect everybody to be able to handle it the same way. And we are seeing a lot of pushback from other counties as well. And unfortunately, but that's fortunate for us, that's what we need to see, is you need to hear Baltimore City can't afford it. You need to hear Montgomery County doesn't want to pay everything that's in it. You need to hear from those other counties in the middle part of the state that they can't do something that the legislation put in place. And then just because of the sheer number of representatives from those areas, you'll start to see policy change a little bit. So I'm a little bit more hopeful that we're going to see a decrease in the requirements of Kerwin, that we'll see some type of, again, Kerwin light go forward with what really can be implemented from each of the counties. And with respect to funding, you know, again, we are going to continue to fight with the legislation that we put in, but at the same time, keep our eyes open that if anybody else comes in, any other counties come in with ideas on how they're going to get more revenue to pay for this, that we can hop on board that as well, too.
Appreciate it.
So we have Mako coming up in a couple weeks. I mean, are you guys aware of any serious discussion from?
No.
Nothing on the agenda about it.
Nothing on the.
There should be.
I cannot imagine we're going to have a Mako conference without some discussion about Kerwin. But that's the way it looks to us.
I'm talking about the counties implementing Kerwin, like the actual boots on the ground, like actually getting this stuff done. I mean, and having this conversation about not doing it.
Well, I mean, personally, I plan on doing as much as that as I can while I'm there, but there's nothing on the agenda anywhere that says, you know, we're going to discuss, you know, the Kerwin issue at all. So, to your answer.
I bet it'll be a lot of talk about it.
Right,
But
right.
as the commissioner's pointing out, we're all going to be talking about it with our colleagues, but some scheduled conversation or informational hearing or something devoted to Kerwin, it's not there.
Well, that board, the board should probably be coming up with some sort of, I would have some sort of model legislation going forward, like between now and January, to say these are the pieces that we want excluded from Kerwin, you know, and then hopefully it's something that at least the counties can agree to. I would be very shocked if Mako doesn't do that ahead of this session, because now's the time to do it. If they wait another year, it's too late.
Right.
It'll
You
be
know,
too.
I know it's very, very short notice, because Mako starts what, on the 16th?
Next
Next
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
Is there a possibility that we could reach out to the leadership there and say, hey, you know, is there any way that we could have a,
You can add a
Open
meeting and ask other counties
to
to
participate?
join.
I think that would be worthy. And if our delegation's gonna be there, we'd like to have you all there as well. And maybe someone from the state level that can come in and from the Department of Education. And any superintendents or
So
whatever.
I don't know how organized it can be with a week's notice, but
Well, that's,
we can get a
that's what
meeting
I'm
room,
at.
I'm
Yeah, I
guessing.
mean, if we can try to get something planned, I think it would be a good way.
I tell you,
to-
the fact that it's not already taken care of in Mako troubles me more than anything, because it's almost like nobody's gonna talk about it. And look, you can't have a county commissioners convention and not have the most important issue facing all 24 jurisdictions, not even on the agenda. I mean, that's just absurd. And you can call Michael Sanderson and tell him I said it. It's absurd.
I would say probably from the perspective of Mako is the big counties have not started making waves yet. And so when they take a vote at the Mako meetings, at the legislative committee meetings, the vote is not in favor of supporting new legislation.
Well, what I would like to see us do is try to reach out to the other counties on the shore and out in western Maryland. The big counties, if they want to join us, they're certainly welcome. But I guarantee you, the room would be filled with commissioners from all of the eastern shore counties and western Maryland counties, because we're the ones,
And this may be a discussion
and some of the bigger
for,
counties are being hurt too, but they're in a little more financial, better shape.
One of the parts of Kerwin that there's agreement between the urban and the rural counties.
absolutely,
There's a lot of common ground here that I'm surprised they're not working at least working that through.
right?
You all will be involved in these sessions, these breakout sessions, that's when you should bring it up.
That's right.
You do have officials there, you're gonna have people like us
You can be
there.
assured of that.
But I'm saying, and then Mako has to get deeply involved in it also. I mean, Mako is not really a big non-supporter of this moving forward as we started this whole process.
Mako-
It has to get involved in it because you will have all the players there, so.
Mako's claim to fame is one county, one vote. And we're supposed to be just as important as the big counties. But I think in this case, there are big counties that are struggling with this thing. And it's one time that I'm tickled to death that we're partnering with Baltimore City. So, but the silence is deafening to us. I mean, we're sitting here, it's hard for us to even do business. I mean, we've got other projects in the wings, we've got other ideas of things we'd like to do for the people of Kent County, and we've just about put everything on hold until we find out what's going on with the Kerwin. And it just makes doing business unbelievably hard. It almost brings us to a stop until we hear what the heck is really gonna happen. Because what's been presented to us doesn't work for us.
And we do have a lot of folks here from our public school system here today, and I just want to reiterate to those out there in the audience that I don't think any of the three of us sitting up here disagree with the pillars of the blueprint. They're all good initiatives. The problem we're having at the county level is how are we going to pay for it? And how is it going to be properly implemented? There's nothing between public safety and education for our children. Those are the most important things that we have the responsibility to provide oversight on. And of course, funding. So don't think for 1 minute that we're sitting up here opposed to what the blueprint is offering. We're not opposed to it. We just don't know how we're going to pay for it. And without some help from the state, little old Kent County can't do it. Not the way they want to. I mean, we're all supporters of education. I think we proved that this past year in the budget process. As much as we could, we tried to be as fair and, you know, supportive. But now, you know, we were talking about a new middle school. And the allocation from the state in all these other counties, you've seen the list. Kent County only gets 50%. And with Kerwin and some of the other projects that Commissioner Fithian was just talking about, I don't know how we do that.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If the bill passes that we're talking about, and you're looking at a $1.3 million local share, you could do that. That's quite, you guys could come up with $1.3 million, right?
For a middle school project.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
But you could not come up with
Tomorrow.
$32.5 million.
No. You're right on both counts.
I mean, obviously, the debt service would be a tremendous difference.
So for $30 million, just as a point of reference, $30 million of a debt would cost 6 cents of an increase, a tax rate increase of 6 cents to pay for that $30 million.
And we
On top of the,
$30 would be $1 of tax revenue, of real estate tax revenue. If it's $300,000 for 1 cent, 30 million is $1.
At $30 million at 30 years would be 6 cents.
yeah, you're paying it all off in 1 year. It would take a
I
whole
understand,
dollar.
yeah.
But this is financed over 30 years or 40, I don't know how far it
It's almost
goes.
6 cents
Right.
over.
But that's 6 cents on top of the 6 cents we gotta raise it for 5 cents for Kerwin, and then you got 5 more for 5 or 6. Before long, you run out of cents. I mean, it's,
Next year, we're looking at 2.2 million by the Department of Legislative Services 2022 estimates. Next year, we're looking at a $2.2 million increase for Kerwin versus not having Kerwin. And we all know that the estimates are grossly underestimated. So 2.2 million, right this year, we were supposed to have $600,000. Education came in at 1.6 million more. By a factor of 2.7. Every jurisdiction is finding that whatever the estimates were by DLS are 3 to 6 times more Baltimore City. 6 times more than what the estimates were. If we're at 2.2 million next year at $300,000 equals 1 cent, go ahead. And that's just that year. Then the next year it comes up to 3 million. Then the next year after that it's 4 million. From 2025 to 2034, it's almost $1 million per year that they're estimating that Kerwin is going to cost versus not having Kerwin.
Mike,
I don't wanna
cut you off, but I'm
Yeah, I
telling you, we've
understand.
made
I'm
that
sorry.
clear that we just can't do what they're
Can't do it.
telling us to do.
This
And
county
we got it.
cannot do it.
The closer it gets to the legislative session and stuff, the more nervous we get, because, that's why we're bringing it up, because we haven't heard any talk, real good talk about it. By other counties, I don't mean by our delegation, I mean by other counties having the same concerns that we have.
And Sanderson.
We
was
have,
here.
I'm just gonna do this one little tidbit. This past budget session, we sat down here and we started our budget with $1.5 million in new money. That's not bad for Kent County. I've had a lot of years over my time where we had $500,000 to start with. We had $1.5 million in new money. When we got done with the state mandates or the county mandates, education, health department, Chesapeake College, fire companies, which is our own mandate, it's by law. We had 100,000, health department, we had $100,000 left to run the rest of the county. That's not sustainable. And the other people that we have to fund, in a way, are just as important to make a county work as those ones that I just mentioned. So we had $100,000 left to take care of the rest of the county. That's anything else you can think of, which is a lot. Just to point out that it's just not doable. And
We ended up eliminating positions. We increased our real estate taxes by 1 cent. And I basically put that tax back in place.
one other thing that I'd like to
It's
point
tough.
out, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No, no.
interrupt. several years ago, I forget what year it was, the state said, during Martin O'Malley's era, said, that was during that 2008, I guess, recession. It was along there somewhere. The state said, we're gonna take all the highway user money away from the counties. For little old Kent County, that was $2.5 million. Air County Roads was not even part of our general fund. It didn't even, that $2.5 million bought all of our equipment, paid our salaries for our workers, and actually carried about $100,000 fund balance for emergencies. They took all that away and they said, as soon as we get straight, we'll give it back to you. Well, we're still waiting. We got about 15% of that back. Really bothered me even with Governor Hogan, that we're talking about this great surplus we had, and the first thing come to my mind, if you paid your debts, which you owed to counties, you wouldn't have to worry about that surplus, because we'd have it. We were promised to pay it. We had to pay away from our employees. We cut all of our employees by 2%. We made them a promise. You help us get through this year, we'll make sure you get it back, and we did. But we have never, and we don't hear anybody talking about the highway money anymore. So in Kent County, I think we got a lot of reasons to be upset, and especially with these mandates that's coming down. And I apologize, I don't mean this for you four guys at all again, but this stuff's being created by people I don't think has a clue what's going on in the rest of the world. But anyhow, that's enough of me.
You're absolutely right about that. And oftentimes they don't have a clue what's happening in real life. Most of the time, they never even actually worked in the private sector before. But let me, I just have one question though, and these are going to be the concerns that we're going to get from them. You know, them being the legislators who are in charge of the purse strings in Maryland. You know, I would never advocate for more cost-cutting measures. I mean, I think you guys have cut to the bone, and I was a county commissioner at the time during the same period that you're talking about. We did exactly the same. Through attrition, our public works department was cut in by a third. You know, and that put all kinds of pressure on the people that were trying to do the same amount of work with less people. You know, and I would never want to do that to your workforce. And raising taxes is never an answer either, because that just hurts your local economy. The people in Kent County know how to better spend their money than no offense to you guys, but you do. And they know better how to spend their money than the state legislators like us, than we do. That money should be kept to the residents of Kent County. So I would never advocate for that. The question, though, that I have is Kent County was just one of just a couple counties across the state that actually had declining population in the last census. Is there a change in attitude in Kent County in regards to economic expansion? Because you have a revenue problem. That's the bottom line. Whether you have this Kerwin mandate or not, or other state mandates, or mandates that you guys put on yourselves over the past several years, regardless of all the mandates, you're still going to have a revenue problem just because of you only have 19,000 people in such a large area. And we have the poverty issue. We keep bringing that up. That's not going to go away. So is there a general sense in Kent County that we're willing to have economic expansion and we're willing to have a population expansion?
Well, I don't know
we're
whether
willing to do all these things, because that's really the only way you're going to fix this revenue problem.
I don't know whether you're aware of it or not, but we just passed some local legislation here last month. There's a development that's going to take place out on 301, some distribution centers, potential 300 jobs in those two buildings, which hopefully will bring residential home builders, and you got to feed them people that work. So on that 301 corridor, there are some real ambitious plans for that strip. And, you know, my thing is, if you want to save the beauty and the open spaces of Kent County, the best way to do it is to put growth where growth belongs. And up on 301, you sacrifice something for the good of the whole county. We think that there's going to be a lot take place in the next couple years in that area. So we're working hard at that.
I'll certainly pass that message over to the powers that be in Annapolis.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure Dr. Couch, when you met with her earlier and her staff, they talked about the age of our current schools throughout the county. I don't think we've built a school here in the last 50 years. It may be more than that.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, so, that middle school, from the pictures I've seen, and I'm assuming we're gonna see them again when she comes up to talk about it, it appears that it's in pretty bad shape. And we do want the best for our kids and for our teachers. But I don't know how we can afford it unless we can get your help there with the capital part of it. And I want to just echo too what Ronnie said. I mean, you know, we wanted you guys to come in hopes of you had something that you were going to tell us that was going to
We
fix
were looking
all-
for that
fix
magic
it all.
bullet, that silver bullet.
We thought you had a magic wand.
The work's done between January and April.
I know,
What happens in
I-
the interim?
I know, but I thought maybe you may have heard some rumors or some rumbling or whatever, and that's all well and good, but please keep your ear to the ground and keep us in mind. And like Ronnie said, we're not coming down on you guys. I mean, we're not, you know,
I don't think
we
you guys-
consider
I don't mean
you
that in any way, shape, or
our
form.
friends and colleagues, and we need your help in Annapolis.
Well, Sheriff Price, I can tell you that Kent's not the only county that we hear from that's concerned about implementation of the blueprint and the cost. You know, every county is feeling, last year we heard a lot in session about, you know, the first pillars being implemented, about the $60,000 salary issue, and even the big counties were having problems with some of those numbers. But, you know, going back to what Mr. Fithian was saying, and you guys about the priorities, you know, for the last 13 years, we've been hearing about HUR is the number one priority for MML every single year for 13 straight years. And I don't understand why the blueprint isn't the number one priority for Mako, just like HUR was all those years until, you know, there's a Band-Aid there now. I mean, there was some more money eventually, you know, to meet.
They got more than they asked for. MML did.
Well, I know.
Because they were asking every year.
I know, but I mean, you know, it was a priority, that was their number one priority for 13 straight, ever since, you know, it was removed, as you talked about earlier, and they made it the priority. But this blueprint, it almost needs to be addressed the same way by the whole mass of all the counties, you know.
And to start
I'm
with, Jay, it's
the
so
same-
confusing to start with, that very few people completely understand the thing to begin with. And to not have that as an issue at Mako, I like you said, I think it's really unacceptable. It's not irresponsible. I mean, it's not putting something out there so that its members, if nothing else, not saying they could change anything, but if we just talked about it.
They still have a rural
But-
county coalition in Miko?
A what?
A rural county coalition. I know they started
Yeah.
that when I was a commissioner. I don't-
Well,
They have all
How
that.
effective is it?
I'll bet you that there will be meetings for the rural county coalition, that's for sure. And I bet you this will come, I can almost guarantee that it's going to come up. But
Well, we heard plenty about this from other counties during session last year. I mean, I'm like you, I don't know why it's not.
I don't know why it's not on the
right
news,
now,
2,
because
11,
we
and
heard from
13.
Many of the big counties during session that what the first pillars that were being implemented were problematic even for the big counties last year. This isn't something new.
right.
And I don't know whether, you know, some of the forecasts aren't good, and maybe they're just not saying as much because of state government.
I
Some
think
of the
they're afraid of,
forecasts
I think
that
they're
are
afraid
being,
of MSEA.
well, that could be.
The teacher unions are still.
I agree. I think that, I mean, I don't know why this isn't on 2, 11, and 13 every night. I mean, but you don't even see it. I know myself, I'm kind of new to this game, but 80% of the people I come in contact with, when you bring up Blueprint or Kerwin, what's that? What are you talking about? They have absolutely no idea. And Mike found an article just this week about priority, the new priority is a new stadium in the city of Baltimore. That'll get more news than, it got more news than Kerwin. I mean, again, it's not your guys' fault. Thanks for coming in.
They're afraid of
Appreciate it.
MSEA because they have so many members. I mean, they're legit in Annapolis. I mean, they really do control public policy, as does AFSCME and all the other labor unions that are out there. But MSEA is, I think that even these bigger counties are, to some degree, are concerned about stepping on their toes, you know. But at some point, they gotta either pony up the money, or they're not gonna be able to implement Kerwin. It's gonna be one or the other. I mean, it's scarcity of resources, it's macroeconomics. I mean, it's finding, they don't have a choice. It's either do one or the other, or a combination of both.
So are we gonna talk about the middle school right now?
We did already.
When you all are done, but, and I assume that we have
We're
any
done
other
beating you
issues
guys
you want
up.
to talk about? You have any
No,
other
I'm
issues?
good. Thanks for
We
coming.
had a very good discussion with Dr. Couch and the staff in there today about some reality of, you know, where the county is with the CEP and whatnot. I think it's gonna be helpful for us in both areas, both Kerwin and possible capital for the schools, and maybe changing this formula for getting away from that 50-50. I think it's gonna be helpful for us. But, you know, everybody's kind of clawing at the same.
There's some things the IAC can do via
Sure.
regulations too, that'll give you some relief as well.
We had a good meeting and got some good information this morning.
Well, we're going to talk to Dr. Couch as soon as our discussion with you all, and you're welcome to stay, or if you've already met with her, it's fine. You do what you want, but
We're gonna set up a meeting with our staff and appropriations. Our league council is also the council for the education subcommittee. We've been working with Michelle Lambert for the last several years. She'll more than likely draft any bills that we're gonna be putting in this year. So it'll go through, and I'm on that subcommittee, it'll go through that subcommittee first, full committee. Really, it's gonna be a matter of whether or not the Speaker of the House and the leadership is willing to pony up the money, because there's costs associated with both of those bills. And we have political capital that we can expend. I mean, this is why you play in the sandbox for as long as you do. So we plan on doing that, but it really comes down to those guys. It's their decision, not ours, unfortunately.
no, we understand that, and we appreciate what you do, and I want to thank you all for coming today, too. Look, it's just us venting a little bit, and we appreciate.
And getting information out as well. I mean,
Yeah, and we appreciate you listening to it. We talk to one another all the time. We want, I guess, a
And we
little
do.
different audience today, but
Let me
we
say
thank
this-
you.
Let me just say this, Commissioner, when you put the heat on us, it makes it easier for us over there, because we just tell them, you can't believe how much heat we have in Kent County, and rightfully so. I'm not saying it's not. So it's good that everybody has an opportunity to have a conversation and vent a little bit, because, you know, it kind of emphasizes for us what we need to say to them about just how much heat is out there and concern there is by, you know, all the residents are eventually going to have to foot the bill.
Right. Well, again, thank you all, and we truly appreciate you being here. And we're going to get on to our next appointment, but thank you very much again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Don't forget that.
Yep, we'll call you. Appreciate it.
Dr. Couch, Superintendent, Kent County Public Schools, and Kent County Middle School Feasibility Study. Welcome, Dr. Couch.
Thank you. Thank you, President Fithian, Commissioners, Mrs. Heller, and Mr. Yeager. Thank you for having us. Just briefly, I'd like to introduce some of the staff that are here today and some of my board members. I have 4 of my board members here: Francois Sullivan, the Vice President, Trish McGee, Aretha Dorsey, board member, and Frank Rhodes, board member. I also have Kent County Middle School Principals Mark Buckle and Assistant Principal Kelly Melvin.
Well, welcome all of you.
Yes. Dr. Lever is also our facilities consultant. He is back there. And Craig Kirby is our construction accountant.
And welcome to
And-
both of you.
Right, and then I also have members from CRA. You've been working with them as well, but they're working with us on our feasibility study. I've got Larry Lovato and John Pryor. But prior to turning it over to them for our presentation, the purpose of us coming today is to provide you an update on where we are with our feasibility study. We've been working on this project for arguably about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, moving forward with investigating all of the deficiencies of the school and looking at ways in which we can build a new school and replace a very old facility that is got a number of deficiencies. We did have an opportunity, the staff and I had an opportunity to meet with the delegation to talk about what we could do as far as introducing legislation to increase the cost share for this project. And we are going to request 98% to be paid for by the state. We don't know if we'll be successful, but the way we came up with that number is we took all of the school systems that have all of their schools in the CEP program, which is the community eligibility provision, which means you provide breakfast, free breakfast, and free lunch to all of the students in the school. There are only about 5 counties in the state that have 100% of their schools under the CEP provision. We will be one of those schools this year, school systems this year. And when we took the average of all of the other school systems that are CEP school systems, the average was 98% of their projects, construction projects, paid for by the state. So we feel like that is a good number to look at. Senator Hershey's going to, and Representative Grice are going to schedule a meeting so we can talk together about introducing legislation. There has been precedence in this area. Garrett County, a couple of years ago, had their cost share percentage by the state increased through legislation. So we hope to be able to capitalize on that as well. So anyways, yes.
What were the other counties? Do you happen to know them off the top of your head?
Wycomico, Baltimore City, Dorchester, Somerset, and I think that's it.
And Garrett, I guess.
No, Garrett is,
Well, they got 90, they don't need much else. They get 90%
well,
of their.
that's because they went through legislation and changed, but they're not a CEP school system.
Okay.
So anyways, what our purpose today is just to provide you with an update on where we are with the feasibility study. It is required by the IAC for us to move forward with this project. And we would like to just let you hear where we're at with the feasibility study, get your input. Ultimately, the Board of Ed is going to have to choose the number one option, and we've narrowed down the options. We'll talk about those, but we've narrowed down the options to 2 locations: a new build in Chestertown and a new build in Morton next to the high school. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Larry so that we can do a high-level overview of the project.
Thank you, Dr. Couch, and thank you for having us today. I'm Larry Lovato. I'm a principal with Crabtree Rohrabaugh Architects, and with me is John Pryor, project architect. Together, along with other staff that we'll introduce here, have been working on the study. We're going to go through the agenda, brief introduction of who we are and what we've been up to. We're going to talk about the existing middle school facility itself. We're going to go through the design options that we've explored, and we're going to talk briefly about what the next steps are for the district. Next slide, please.
Oops. Do you want us to go up there and?
No, she has it up. It's right there.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So this is a brief snapshot of our entire team and experience working together. At the heart of it all is Kent County Public Schools. We've assembled a series of staff members in our office, myself, Grace Highland, John, our Director of Design has been involved. We also have a security and safety officer on our staff with Todd Vukmanic. And we have a code operations manager. The gentleman is one of 500 in the country that it works with us with our codes. We've also had a series of engineers. Some of them may be familiar to you. Geip Associates, they're here on the Eastern Shore. AdTech Engineering is our structural engineer. Davis Moore and Sheeran, local civil engineering firm, to help us look at these sites and the site issues. And we've also used a cost estimating consultant deeply entrenched in everything that's going on in Maryland and in the Mid-Atlantic region on cost estimating. And we've gone back and forth with them to really improve on their cost estimates and look at all the nuances for each of these options. Next slide. Project introduction. So we already talked about why we're here. We're trying to come up with a conceptual feasibility of options for the modernization of the middle school. They'll endeavor to meet the newly approved educational specifications that the county has developed, and we'll also follow the IAC guidelines. There's a facility guidelines that we must pick all the marks, if you will, on them. So design goals. We want to identify and address the existing facility needs to modernize the facility and extend, if possible, the useful life of the physical plant and operational systems. We want to look at the realignment of the school grade configurations. In this particular instance, we're looking at grades 5 to 8. We're going to address the functional and educational deficiencies based on those ed specs to meet educational standards. And we want to provide these preliminary budgets and construction cost information to look at and help assist in prioritizing the budgets for these projects. So a methodology that we used, we looked at existing drawings of the building. We've looked at the ed spec. We've looked at the building envelope, all the structural and mechanical systems. We've looked at all the program areas of the building itself. Most important is the program in the educational spaces. We've looked at and observed the site traffic and flows and all the locations we're talking about. We've also interviewed and sat with administrative staff and building administrators as to how they physically operate in those spaces. The findings, and I'm not going to read through all of them because we've talked about some of them. First and foremost, we're looking at the life cycle expectancies and costs of these buildings. As we've stated, that they have not built a new school since the mid-'70s. We know systems have been replaced and need to be replaced. And we're also paramount to every board that we work with right now is the safety and security, not just of the students, but of the staff that's operate in these buildings. So just a quick thing on cost estimates that you'll hear today. They include all the construction costs, bricks and sticks, if you will, including the contractor's overhead and profits, bonding and insurance, contingencies, escalation, and escalation is a hard number to pinpoint, as you're well aware, and phasing premiums associated with each option. They do not include the design and engineering fees, any permit fees, testing and inspections by third parties, financing options that will have to be encumbered, or the furniture and finishes. Just briefly on our safety and security side of the house. We have 4 staff members that are certified through this crime prevention through environmental design. What does that mean? They went through significant training to understand the approaches and how visibility is within schools to safeguard and really build and reinforce layered security throughout our system and even on our school sites itself. We recently brought this along with the schools, Maryland School Safety. We brought training to the state of Maryland, so each of the LEAs could send people to the state training. It's usually given in North Carolina. We brought the trainer to Pennsylvania, or to Maryland, excuse me, and had the LEA send people on their staffs to get certified in this so that they understand the principles. We feel it's important to empower at the local school level and not just hear from what we consider the experts. Again, safety and security is our main thing, and it's all achieved through natural surveillance, reinforcement. We talk territorial reinforcement. How can we layer the approach to that school system or that school building itself? And we also look at that policy and procedure protocol to make sure their staff is trained properly in those protocols. A little bit more on this. We look at the site, we look at the facility design itself right from concept, and we look at the operational measures, if you will, from a policy and procedure standpoint. We're going to talk a little bit now about the existing facility itself. We're going to go, and this is what Mr. Price referred to in terms of seeing some photos of the existing facility, and I'll let John speak to that.
Okay, this was kind of alluded to earlier in the presentation, or your last presentation. The original building was built in 1950, and the last comprehensive renovation was done in 1976. Since 1976, it really hasn't had any comprehensive renovation done to the school, so there's a lot of things that need to be brought up to date, code, ADA compliance, all those things. The energy efficiency is also one thing that we looked at with the existing building. The existing walls are old. They're built in 1950, 1960, 1952, so a lot of the exterior walls have little or no insulation in the walls. They're masonry, which is good for maintenance and structural issues, but don't have a lot of insulation in them. But we're left, with those existing walls to move forward with any renovations to the school. Actually, in the next slide, when we go through the different things with the school, just some various pictures. Upper left is the main entrance, no accessibility into the building from an ADA compliance standpoint. The lower left, the roofs, you can see a lot of the spots that showed ponding. Water was on the roof, and a lot of spots where they tried to patch the roof. Lower right, a lot of masonry issues on this building. A lot of areas need repointed. But we also have some issues on the second floor under the windows with the structural members that are carrying the brick and everything. They're starting to rust and corrode and really need addressed. Throughout the school, walking through the school, you'll see a lot of different things. The lockers need replaced. The door hardware, top center, obviously there's a lot of different types of hardware that need replaced, need to be ADA compliant. A lot of the glass you see there is wire. That's not code compliant anymore. A lot of the ceilings, all the ceilings need replaced, whether you see spots or not, because they're all mishmash of different types of ceiling tiles. But the spots obviously are from the roof with water coming in. Lower left is showing some flooring materials. Basically, the whole building just needs an update as far as finishes. The toilet rooms are all non-compliant, ADA compliant, so they all have to be reconfigured. A lot of the finishes have to be redone as well. Looking at the existing facility from an overall standpoint, the current SRC is 645. The current enrollment from 6 to 8 is going to be 400. The proposed SRC is going to be 612, and the projected enrollment, again, 5 through 8 instead of 6 through 8, is going to be 520. There was a budget in the educational specifications of $41 million, but it really didn't include the same things that our estimates are including as far as all the escalations associated with phasing and other things that you need to include in any estimate. But one of the things with the floor plan layout on the right-hand side, you'll see on the right-hand side the gymnasium, which is a good space. It's one of the better ones throughout the building. But in that center section, a lot of those classrooms are inboard, the outside of the building, so they don't get any natural daylight. No windows into those classrooms. The media center, which is the very center space that you see there with an L, it's a large space, but you can see the yellow going through there in 2 different directions following the corridors. You get, during the day while you're trying to use the library, trying to teach in there, you have people walking through the library just to connect from one corridor to the other. So, there's a lot of issues like that associated with this plan. lower left-hand corner, you see corridors on two sides, which is a very inefficient use of space. Yeah, it's just very inefficient, and between that area and the lower right-hand side with the existing administration, which is very small for a school of this size, we were looking at, with the renovations, in demolishing those particular areas just because they're so inefficient from a structural standpoint. It's very hard to add on to those spaces because of that. Also, the second floor, upper right, again, those floors do have the daylight, classrooms do have the daylight, but one of the big things with this school is it doesn't have an elevator in it. ADA accessibility from one floor to the other is probably the biggest thing that is wrong with this school, along with the ADA compliance and all the toilet rooms throughout the building, getting into the building. But the daylight is the other issue.
Well, one aspect to point out on, when we talk about SRC state-rated capacity, the state, the IAC, requires the school to use an 85% utilization rate. So if you see a current state-rated capacity of 645 and the enrollment of 400, they're below that 85%, but you can see if we go to the proposed at 612, the 520 is above that 85% threshold, hence the need for additions when we get into the options.
Some of this, what Larry just said, is reflected in this floor plan, showing the existing building. You can see the areas in blue are oversized by more than 10% with the educational specification that we're looking to design by. The green showing within 10% of the programmed area, and the pink is undersized by more than 10%. So you do have spaces throughout here that are larger than what's programmed for this school that our new plans are going to be showing. But again, some of them are just way oversized. The library is way oversized, but with all that circulation cutting through the space, you're only getting a portion of that space to actually be used for what it's used for. Just review the existing middle school site. One thing that note here, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but the bottom line is with parent drop-off and bus drop-off, you typically like those things to be separated completely so there's less confusion in front of the school when the kids are being dropped off or picked up, which we have that issue here. Also, the open space grant that was provided to the county, which allowed that large open space in Area D there that's shown on the plan. The tennis court's over to the left, there's a basketball court there, and then that walking path around the entire open space with the stations, physical stations at 5 points around that walking path are all included in that open space grant. Now, anything we do to this school, we need to maintain that, meaning if we take something away to put new construction in its place, we got to dedicate some space to that open space grant. We got to try and keep it in place as much as possible.
The next summary is an options overview slide. These are the 5 options that we looked at collectively as a team. Option 1 is renovations and additions to the existing school. Option 2 was a replacement school, brand new middle school at the Chestertown site. Option 3 was a replacement school as an alternative site, and we looked at several within the county. Option 4 is a replacement school at Wharton, and option 5 is an attachment actually to the existing Kent County High School. We'll go through each of these options briefly. You can see options 2 and 4 have been highlighted here. Those are the 2 options that the board has narrowed this down to. This slide also gives you a summary of the cost. Again, the construction cost ranging from 48 to 61 million, and we'll go into the changes between the two. The other thing is, if you look at the bottom of that slide, it talks about months. These are months of construction. Some of these have significant impacts to the educational program itself. So if we're looking at option 1, when we get into that, I'll talk to that so you understand that component. Okay. We're going to go on the options now. Are any questions so far? Okay.
Yeah, let's kind of move through.
Okay, we'll move through these fairly quickly since you have the presentation. Again, this is additions and renovations to the existing school. We've separated, as John talked about, the best possible way for the parent drop-off. It might involve some modifications to Campus Avenue. We've separated the bus loading, and we would have to look at circulation from that point on. We've reworked the entry point on this. This option does look at putting a geothermal system into the play area out there, as we've talked about. We would replace the surface in kind afterwards. As we get into the floor plan, you can see there's not significant changes to the existing floor plan. We still have a number of classrooms interior without natural daylight. We have solved the ADA or addressed the ADA accessibility issues. We have looked at better alignments or adjacencies, if you will, from a program standpoint. This is really applying that ed spec to this building. We still have the deficiencies in the building envelope. We can't insulate the walls anymore. And we have looked at additions to the kitchen cafeteria area, as well as rebuilding if you see the 8th grade wing down there, and the administrative areas. In summary, this is what we call a phased occupied construction, meaning we're going to have students in this building on this site when we conduct construction. It means we will take a section of the building, locate those students in portable trailers, renovate that portion of the building, move those kids back, jump to another section of the building, and rotate around until the entire building is complete, and then finalize the site. That's why the duration takes 40 months. You're talking over 3 years of interruptions to the educational program. That's a whole, if you're a 5th grader, you're going to go through an entire career, if you will, to put it in summary. We looked at opportunities and challenges. What do these each provide? And I'm not going to read these to you, other than it does solve some of the problems, but you can see the challenges still have a significant list there, if you will. And this cost is for about $49.8 million.
One of the big challenges with that, at the end of the day, you're going to be spending almost $50 million on this school, yet you're still going to have that core space in the middle of the building still without natural light.
As we go to option 2, this is a new middle school on the same site. We would propose to build a new middle school at the far end along Rolling Road, rework the bus and parent drop-off off of Campus Avenue. We would still look at geothermal capacity in this building, and ultimately, once we build the new school, then we can demolish the old Kent County School, and as John indicated earlier, reestablish that walking and all that, those stations to meet the grant needs there. This does keep it obviously within Chestertown. This is option 2, one that the board has selected to look at further. We've come up with a floor plan. As you can see, it was a tight site. It's not a sprawling floor plan, but we have met the entire educational specifications. We've met all the adjacencies for program requirements. This is a much cleaner approach, build new, tear down the old afterwards. We're really not affecting the kids, other than that construction site will probably take up most of that field during construction while we build this portion of the school. Ultimately, they'll get their park back, but it'll be a couple years down the road. In summary, it's about 24 months of construction. It's 18 months to build the building and get the kids in it. We still have another 6 months to return that site back around. Opportunities are much stronger here than the challenges. We still have that small site, and we are going to use those outdoor play areas during construction, so we will impact the kids and the neighbors that use that site for exercise and whatnot. The construction cost here is about $55.8 million. Option 3 is a very same plan that we just identified to you in option 2. Why we're not showing option 3 is we looked at sites within the county. We had our engineers work with Dr. Couch and the administration to identify potential properties. We did not find a site that is currently available to build a school on without a direct purchase, which would increase the dollar cost. So we couldn't cost that out. We do know that there would be increased costs from a construction standpoint for all the utilities associated with extending utilities into that site, no matter where it was. But that would be a same type of program and plan that we identified. So the construction cost would be similar, but add on the cost of utilities and add on the cost of purchasing the property itself. That's why option 3 showed up as one of the highest costs. As we go into option 4, this is a replacement school. So again, we use the same floor plan as option 2, but out here at the Wharton site on the campus. The site overview here, as you can see, Kent County to the northwest part of the page, if you will. The star indicates where we propose to build this new middle school, adjacent to the bus depot at the Wharton, formerly the Wharton Elementary. The reason why we looked at this option is we still want to identify the high school and the middle school as separate entities themselves. Her current high school has a difficult entrance. If you try to find the entrance to that school, you can show up at a number of different entry points. And we also looked at the mixing of cars and buses. We're adding 500 or so students over here, middle school level, between the buses and the parent drop-offs. That would be increased traffic to the site. So we did look at all that in this option. Here's another site, pictorial, if you will, where we would propose locating the new middle school. We've worked out the circulation for parent drop-off and bus. The state likes to see those physically separated. We have a pedestrian aisle horizontal in the page there, and also leading out to the fields. We had to work around some things with the existing bus depot and how they operate. And again, we would come off Wharton Road for most of this circulation and keep the high school traffic coming in off of Lambs Meadow Road. Again, same floor plan that meets the educational specifications. Again, these are concepts. This plan would change probably a bit in design to better fit everything, but this is at our current level.
One thing to quickly point out about the floor plan for option 4, the kitchen for option 4 would be considered a satellite or warming kitchen. The reason for that is you can save some money on square footage, staff, equipment, kitchen equipment itself, by actually cooking the lunches at the high school and then bringing them over to the middle school and using them there. So we have costs associated with, well, the cost you see on here is for the satellites, a smaller kitchen than in option 2, but we do have costs associated with trying to make those equal.
And that cost, I know Dr. Couch is going to jump on this hard. It's something we really have to vet through in the design process with the school system itself. It's sort of the feasibility of manhandling that operation, right? It means you're going to have vehicles on campus delivering food hundreds of yards away, offloading it and reloading it into a warming kitchen. It may not be the best suited option, but it is a potential there for some smaller cost savings as we upfront look at those budgets. We just want to be upfront and honest about that.
I got to tell you, I think Dr. Couch and I are going to agree on this,
Yeah.
because if you're going to go spend that kind of money on a facility
Yeah.
and not have its own kitchen, that's robbing
Right,
Peter
so
to pay Paul.
so what we've asked the architects to do, and they will present this to the board when, we look at the options and try to finalize, is we'll have 4A, option 4A and option 4B. 4A will be a warming kitchen, 4B will be a full kitchen, so that you can compare apples to apples.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the pluses, and I don't have a dog in either fight, but the one plus with this is the children are not interrupted in any way, shape, or form, because
Correct.
their playground's not being built on, and they don't have to juggle them around
Correct.
in the existing school while you're, yeah.
Absolutely. So in the summary, this construction is truly a construction cost about 18 months. The cost is about $53.8 million as it stands right now. The challenges, there might be some impacts in the high school and the bus area as we work around those travel lanes, if you will. But really, this gives a great opportunity for the alignment with the educational goals for both schools.
Can I take a question? And I don't care, I'm just throwing this out, but the last time we met with you all about, and Dr. Lever was there about a new school with the former board, there was an issue that come up that because of all the extra space, and we can argue how much that is, in the old high school, it was told to us that until we dealt with that issue of what are we going to do with the extra space, that the state would maybe balk on helping us build a new school. Has that been taken care of?
Well, we've been working with the IAC it's probably been a good year and a half in terms of, they've been part of our review process throughout the planning of the school. And I think we've addressed all of their concerns that they had raised with the high school, because essentially it would add a lot more cost to the entire project, because we would have to relocate areas of the high school. It would require more investment, more capital, and so it would really drive up the costs.
Okay.
So,
I just remember that was a sticking point back then, and obviously something we had to deal with.
Right.
And it sounds like you've done that.
yeah.
Okay.
So option 4 here. At one of the community meetings you held, at all the community meetings you held, there was talk about if the new middle school was placed on the Wharton campus, that there might be some money that could be allocated for some renovation at the high school. Does this allow for that, or was that option 5?
No. Option 5 was where if it was attached to the high school, then there would be some monies that we would have to relocate some areas to accommodate. So we thought that the cost of the building itself would lend us some additional dollars to actually make a great impact on renovation of the high school. But when it was all said and done, it really didn't provide as much of an impact to the high school as we thought, and it created so many more problems with mixing of the populations. So the board ultimately decided that option 5 was not the best option.
We'll go through that briefly now. As we looked at the existing high school, the orange arrows indicate, the small orange arrow at the bottom of the plan, if you will, is where the current entry is to the administrative offices. As we looked to put the middle school component on here, we looked at what spaces within the high school could be shared potentially from a program standpoint. And it comes down to the gymnasium, the cafeteria spaces, so we don't have to duplicate those. So you can see the footprint for the new middle school, or the addition of the middle school, is significantly different. We still want to separate the bus and parent drop-off, and we've accommodated that in this design. We would have to put some new entry points into Lambs Meadow Road, and that would probably involve some highway permit issues. But ideally, we want to still keep the identity of the middle school and the high school separate. We would relocate the high school main entrance, if you will, in the middle of the plan by the large orange arrow. What that does is we could still have a high school parent drop-off zone. We could use a shared bus drop-off zone between the middle school and the high school students, so that high school students can go into the high school this way and into the right, and the middle school students can go vertical north, if you will, to the plan and enter the spaces. They still have separate offices and administrative areas. So these are some of the things as we go into the floor plan, if you will, that identify really the differences between the middle school and high school, but also those spaces that Dr. Couch just spoke to. Where the community health center identifier is currently located is where the current access to the high school is. Those spaces in there, because they're administrative offices, could be repurposed. Potentially, this could be a location for community health center. The new main entrance would require spaces in the pink to be modified to accommodate that administrative staff for the high school itself. As we look at the middle school, I identified the bus and the main entrance lobbies. You can see there's some, we're adjacent to the gymnasium and cafeterias, but we are on a very linear path, if you will, from an education standpoint. So if we have fifth grade students, we still have a discussion, a strong discussion with administration and staff. We still have fifth graders now intermixing with 12th graders, right? Some point they're going to cross within this building on the way to gymnasium or on the way to the cafeteria. But probably the biggest discrepancy or the biggest issue that we found or identified from an education standpoint is the high school is on what they call a block schedule. It's a set program to give them more and a longer exposure, if you will, to a class structure. And then when you go to the middle school level, they're on a normal schedule. So they might have 8 or 9 classes a day.
7 periods a day versus 4 periods a day.
4 periods. So there's a big discrepancy, and to match up those schedules and those time frames, when we're moving kids from one into the high school, they may not mesh the way we envision it right now, and it might even further complicate the schedules of both schools. So that is a very large concern academically, if you will.
Excuse me, Larry, before you move to the next slide, I think you asked a question earlier that came up in one of the public meetings. I think one of the questions that was asked, could we do an option 4 with a brand-new building, but then do some of the updates to the high school that need to be updated, like providing a new entrance to that school? Well, you could, but it would be it would be a different funding from the state, and it would be separate. It wouldn't be part of this project. So there's some different things you'd have to look at from that standpoint. But yeah, there is some things you could do to the high school as far as relocating the admin, providing a new entrance in the center of the building there, make it more visible from where the parking lot where you come into the site. But again, that would be a separate project, separate from the middle school, different funding.
And this does not comprehensively affect other spaces within the existing high school itself. Okay. And you can see the floor plan here of the middle school. So the summary for option 5 was 20-month duration, $48.1 million. And again, the challenges that we've outlined are on the right-hand side there. And my last slide is just a summary again of each of the options. Again, highlighted as option 2 and 4. That's something the board recently determined was their direction. They have not gone beyond that at this point. We had gone to a couple of public community meetings. We wanted to present to, obviously, you, the county commissioners, as you have a large stake in this process. And at this point, we'll do one more slide and talk about the timeline. So you can see where we've gone through the process. We're here August 8th for the presentation of the commissioners. Perhaps on the 14th, the school board will further select an option.
We delay that till September.
So that's where we're at in the process. So if you have any questions.
Right. One of the things that we are doing is this week we're deploying a survey to every single family of a student enrolled in Kent County Public Schools to get their idea of which option they prefer, option 2 or option 4. So we'll have those data that we can share with the board. And so we expect to get the results of the survey for our families and our parents sometime this month, and then we'll present all of that information in September. Because ideally, we have to have one option that we're going to select so that we can go forward, when we go forward with legislation to try to get an increase of state share and funding for the middle school. We can't say, well, it might be this option or it might be that option. We really have to have an option selected. So our purpose here is to share where we're at, to obtain some of your input, because obviously you have a big stake in this. You're going to hopefully help fund the project. And, we'll see what happens with the legislature this year in terms of increasing the state share. But we certainly would like to hear your thoughts about the project and any questions that you have regarding the two options.
One of my, well, obviously, funding is going to be
Yeah.
the most critical part of this entire process. But one question I think I would or maybe it's a comment, I think that we need to be mindful of the economic impact of, for example, Chestertown. I think that the middle school being in Chestertown is a pretty critical economic driver to Chestertown, and I just hope that we can have that in mind as we maybe make our decision.
Right.
And I'm not saying one way or another, but I think that matters to the residents of Chestertown, and it should.
Right. Well, I think the project will have an economic advantage to the entire county, no matter where it goes. I understand that. The biggest thing that will come back from the IAC is they're going to want to know what, they're in the business of doing what's best for the students and the families and the student population. So, their overall interest is not going to be the economic advantage of one side over the other. They're going to be looking at what are the pros and the cons and what are the benefits for the students. So we'll have to justify that to the IAC as well.
Dr. Couch, when you look at those two options, how does that affect the busing situation? Is it plus or minus? I know it's been said if it stays in Chestertown, you have a lot of kids that walk to school, you don't have to carry them nowhere. But being it's right next door to the high school, is there a plus or minus as far as how it affects the busing situation?
Very minimal minus, if you will, in terms of, in some of the outer locations like Goltz, we would run one bus as opposed to two buses. We have a bus that runs out to Goltz for the middle school.
That's what I was wondering, if middle school and high school kids would be going to basically the same destination.
Right.
Does that affect the busing?
Very minimal,
Okay.
because we would still, as much as possible, try to separate the two populations, just simply because of the number of students we would have to transport. But in areas that are further out and some of the outer areas of Kent County, we would probably look to be a little more efficient and put all of those students on the same bus.
I got you. Okay.
But, arguably, we've looked at it and we still believe it's not going to save that many buses, if you will, for transporting. Because right now, our middle school buses are full and our high school buses are full. So it's going to be
I see.
difficult.
Okay.
As a grandparent, I wish I had a chance to fill out one of those surveys. So obviously, I'm not going to get that opportunity because I don't have any current children in your school system. But if I were to fill out the survey today, from the information that I've heard, my selected location would be here in Chestertown. And if that's not the case, I would hope that if you go with the Wharton site, that you do include that cafeteria in there, because I agree with what Commissioner Fithian said. If we're going to spend that kind of money, let's go ahead and do it right. But if I was filling the survey out, Dr. Couch,
I hear you.
I would
don't think
prefer to
anybody
keep it
would
at the
agree
current
with that.
location, because I kind of agree with Albert. In fact, I do agree with Albert, not kind of, that I think it is economically good for Chestertown to have that school right here in town. Just my 2 cents.
Yep. We're here to get your 2 cents.
Got it.
And 58 million somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, we know that whatever location we select, I mean, we were meeting with the delegation, we figure 30 to 40% of the population's not going to be happy. Because right now, when we initially took a survey on the two locations, it was pretty well split. And this was open up to community, parents, anybody who wanted to complete the survey. It was almost a 50-50 split. You know, some wanted it in Wharton, some wanted it in Chestertown.
Almost kind of like the rest of politics.
Yeah, that's exactly what Representative Grice said. Welcome to our world.
Yeah, right.
So we know we're not going to please everybody. Ultimately, we've got to try to select a location that's going to be the best fit for our students and offer the best opportunities looking forward.
If you want to please me, don't worry about the location as much as get the funding straight so we can.
Okay.
And look, if you don't meet the 98 or the 96 or whatever it is you're asking for.
We're asking for 98.
Well, if we come, I mean, if we can even do better than that if we have to. I mean, we're all on the same page. We'd like to see a new school take place. We just got to be able to afford it.
Yeah.
And we're going to work hard, and I know you are, and we'll all work together. And unfortunately, it's not in our hands. We got to have help across the bay, but let's work hard and see if we can get that done. Because I agree with you. We desperately need it, but it's got to be affordable.
Yeah, I agree.
So
And that's why we're going to give a run at it.
Yeah, and if we can be of any help, please let us know, and thank you for all your hard work.
Right, I will end by saying that I did have a conversation with Alex Donahue, who is the executive director for the IAC, who oversees all of the public school construction projects, and he knows that we're going to take a run at legislative changes to the funding formula with state match. He did indicate that they are taking a deep dive into the funding formula this year, and chances are they're going to make changes to the funding formula in the next cycle, which is 2 years from now. But, you know, he said that Kent County likely would see a change in, in where we fall within the funding formula. But he understands that we want it now, and we want to make those changes as soon as possible, and they're in support of us moving forward with trying to get legislation in place.
Well, we're getting a lot of messages saying that.
Yeah.
Or
Let's just see.
pointing to something
Yeah.
taking place.
Yeah.
Our Governor Moore kind of relayed the same message to me when he was in town that day. He and I spoke, and obviously Kerwin and the school was the number one priority that I talked to him about, and he said he understood and that there were going to be changes made.
Yep. I'm still in communication with the governor's office as well, and they asked me to just be calm, that they're still looking at, ways to look at the overall structure. And, I mean, I send a little remember us, don't forget us
I
kind
hear you. Look, we've all done,
messages.
I think we've all done our homework as
Yeah.
far as making this an issue. And we can only hope for the best.
Right, so,
So
all right, thank
we're all
you.
on the same page.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
And nice job with your,
Yeah, very good.
your whole presentation.
Yep, thank you.
Gotta leave us. Okay. Now that's gonna cost you an alligator.
You got it.
Oh, no, that's the whole floor.
No, you can just go out. We'll cover when you're welcome. I mean, that's, you have to do something, you have to do it. That's the way.
No, I'm good.
Thank you, guys.
You do it. Have a good trip.
Thank you.
Yeah, watch it, them things bite. Albert, them things bite now. You can't watch them. Our next appointment is Arnessa Dow from the Director of Kent County Public Library for FY 2024 certification for Cooperative Local State Library Aid Program. Welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
No, afternoon. Sorry, 5 minutes late. So, the first thing is, the FY 2024, aid that is given to us by the state. It's $123,000 and some change, and it's what we said that we were getting before. It is an increase over last year. We got $117,000, and so it's a slight increase, around $6,000.
That's the state's contribution.
That is correct, sir. So, yes.
Okay.
So I would like to make a motion to approve the certification for the FY 2024 Cooperative Local State Library Aid Programs as presented.
And I'll second that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. And just to point out, Commissioner Nickerson was just left. He has some personal things he has to take care of, but we're good. And then we have FY 2024 African American Heritage Preservation Program Grant Application, an easement letter.
Yes. So on July 17th, I had applied for a grant, but they need a letter from the commissioners. The Maryland Historical Trust need a letter from the commissioners saying that we will not demo the building in the next 15 years, and that if we make any changes outside of the ones that we want to do with inside the grant, that we would notify them of said changes. And so that's pretty much the gist of it. I did apply for, it is a non-matching grant, so I applied for $200,000. I don't know if we'll need $200,000 after I talked to Mike Moltz, but I did just shoot for the stars.
And I think I read in the notes that we will apply, you're hoping, that we apply for, we give you a letter of support and we all agree with this. But then if it's awarded, we'll take a look at what stipulations. I don't want it to be, I mean, the uses that can, people that can, limited to, that's something that we wouldn't agree with, but.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would just suggest if it's an easement, just send it off through legal review too, because that has implications as to what the county can and can't do with the building. So
Yes.
it should be reviewed before we sign off on anything.
Right, the
That's what I
required
thought I
easements
understood.
would be outstanding, the terms of the easements, as well as a new MOU. Right now, there's an existing MOU between the county, the library, and some ancillary groups who donated money to the building a number of years ago. And those MOUs need to be updated as well, and that way, these changes will be incorporated into the responsibilities after, assuming we get the grant, after the grant is.
I think if my memory serves me, the Friends of the Library has donated money on a few occasions actually to that building, and so we would want to look at
That's right.
what we can and can't do with it.
That's right. So we're just defining responsibilities. The original MOU is very
Absolutely.
vague. And where we really have landed is there probably ought to be two different MOUs. One between the county and the library, because they are the user of the building. And then they can have whatever MOU they would like in place with the other literary groups. As far as, when they're using the room, and, I mean, that's really between
Yes.
them. It has
Sure.
nothing to do with the county.
So entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to sign the easement letter for the Maryland Historical Trust African American Heritage Preservation Program grant application, which would fund the Hearst House renovation project at 207 Calvert Street, Chestertown, with the understanding that acceptance of the grant will be contingent on updated memorandums of understanding being executed, the details of the easements being acceptable, and the award funding being sufficient for the project, and also to include a legal review prior to the letter being signed.
I'll second that. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you.
And thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate
Okay.
your time
Have a
today.
good day.
You too.
cruising right along.
Mike Molds is Director of Water and Wastewater, or Public Works Director, and he's here with the Water and Wastewater Division to talk about the Wharton Lagoon sludge removal contract closeout. And I might add, in a positive way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so work on the lagoon sludge removal project, of course, has been completed. The original contract amount was $1,400,500 based on an estimated tonnage of sludge that was going to be removed. Due to actual tonnage being less, commissioners then approved the change order number 1 in the amount of $30,000 to also remove solids from the 2 Wharton sludge digesters so that they could be maintained, inspected and maintained, and while all the equipment was there to be able to do that. Sludge removal project was completed at a total cost of $943,716.35. And of course, this also included transportation and landfill disposal costs. So that's already incorporated into that contract project. So what we need to do is at change order number 2, refer as a rectifying change order. It reduces the original contract amount by $486,783.65. And then with that, we've also included the 2 payment requests that will bring the payments up to what the work was done, as well as release retainage for the project to close it out. So, yes, it was very successful. I don't know if you remember, when we originally thought we were going to do this, we were going to try to get a contract we thought would be around $1 million. Unfortunately, our engineer, we put that out, and the contractor's workload was tied up, so he wasn't able to bid it. So we ended up back to what the original budget was with the award of at $1.4 million. So it all turned out pretty good, but we ended up back at that.
Because it was based on the, I mean, obviously, we must have weighed this stuff as we took it away, and it was per ton or something? Is that?
Well, when we first started looking at the need to do this, after we realized we had a buildup in there from that storm, that we had a company came in and they voluntarily did probes in the lagoon to try to get an idea what the depth was, and then come up with an estimate. So we were able to utilize that estimate and putting that into the bid specifications. And the ability to, depending on what kind of condition that is, if you get a lot of grit, that weighs more, so it's a higher cost when you dispose of it versus regular sludge and things like that. So it all worked to our advantage. We accomplished what we needed to do. The lagoon's cleaned out, the digesters are cleaned out. Wharton is one of our most important plants because of its capacity and what it serves.
So you see a real difference there now after it's.
Yeah, better aeration going on and everything. So the next project, if you remember on our schedule for using ARPA money, because this was an ARPA project, we looked at 2 other projects that were out there. One was the Kennedyville Pump Station 2, which is under design. And the second one was replacing it's a piece of equipment that removes the water from the sludge material so that it can go to the landfill. That system has had a lot of problems breaking down and everything. And I think that was one of the contributing things where we ended up putting more material into the lagoon. We want to be able to replace that piece of unit. We've looked at it. And with that ARPA money savings that we've got, plus the residual that's still in the ARPA funds that hasn't been allocated, to put that towards replacing that piece of equipment. Sort of the whole, dealing with the whole issue was out there.
Do you have a price of what that piece of equipment will cost?
Yes, they've given us pricing for that. We'll need to do some plans and specifications in order to procure it out. So we have a budget for that. I can send you out, we did a sheet just to get an idea of where we stand with our ARPA budget so we can do some tracking. But for the solids press replacement, we're probably looking around $450,000. The ARPA money that we've got right now is about $655,400. That's the money that's as a result of the reducing this contract. And I think we had about $168,000 still not allocated yet. We're waiting to see how these projects pan out. So that's going to be our goal and request, to be able to utilize that money before we have to give it back to the federal government.
How much was the piece of equipment that
Well, I'm not talking about not just a piece of equipment, but also the installation and cost that goes along with it. So we're looking around 450,000
We're good. For everything.
Just for the Wharton.
For the Wharton construction, well, installation of that thing. And you're going to have some design costs and some construction management for the contractor to come in and do all this stuff. So I have a sheet that I'll send out to you folks so you can take a look at the whole picture of the thing.
When you'll have an updated sheet, after we make this motion to approve that and stuff, then there will be some adjustments to the breakdown of the ARPA money.
And the ARPA, there is a sheet in your packet, which is near the bottom, and this is all the projects, not
But
just.
does it reference this change?
Not yet.
No, it'll
No,
be,
it
this
will.
will, right, right.
What I
But
mean-
this- Right, this one is for all the ARPA projects, not just Mike's. Mike tracks his share of
Yes.
them, this one has all.
Very good. So,
So let's take care of the first issue.
yep, let's do that first.
I make a motion to approve change order number 2 with Denali Water Solutions to reduce the contract in the amount of $486,783.65 to reflect final actual cost and signed payment applications, number 3 and 4, to release the retainage and close out the contract for an overall total amount of $943,716.35.
And I'll second that. So we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Does that answer your questions, Commissioner Price, or we get you more
I'm
information?
assuming
on
that
it?
you'll either come back at another time once we,
Exactly.
to talk about the other.
Yeah, the other thing, when we're looking at all these capital projects, with your budget, we have those capital projects that are also in process, where we have a limit, working with that 537,000. So we've got those prioritized and things like that. So we want to try to give you the whole picture of where we are with all that capital money.
And I know I sent you an email commenting on your weekly report that you gave to us.
Thank you, yes.
And I want to publicly do it, because it was very, very well done. It really helped me understand exactly where we are with a lot of these projects that we are currently working on. And it was very, very detailed, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know Shelley's always like to see the weekly ones, but it seems like a week goes by and I'm trying to figure out what the heck I did do with all this stuff going on. So I've sorted out to probably put everything, because it said a lot of these things just take time with these projects. To go back in a monthly report, I can put a little more detail for you on that and see where
I found
things
it
are
very
going.
helpful.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions and anything for me today? Good?
I don't,
And
has anybody had a chance to stop down to
Anderson?
Waterman's Crab House in
Oh,
front?
the Crab
About those
House?
couple speed bumps, or
Well-
one, or
Yeah, was there a decision to want to do that? I guess we had talked about different options with that the last time we talked.
the only reason I bring it up is that I've been confronted by several people, some of the owners and people that work there, about the people, some of the watermen and stuff using, and boaters using that Sharp Street Pier, which belongs to us. But it's like this far away from the front door of Waterman's, and sometimes there's some excessive speed, somebody getting in a hurry, and we don't want anybody getting run over. That's why it was brought to my attention. I brought it to yours, that see if we could put some type of a speed bump. And I hate speed bumps, so I wouldn't be asking you if it wasn't what I think is an important, something worth thinking about.
Yeah, I think the next step, if that's a definite desire of the commissioners to do that, we'll talk to the owner of the restaurant. You can get those ones that are, you're not using macadam, it's sort of like a hard rubber
Yes.
bumper kind of thing that you go over to slow someone down. So at some point, it could be put in, and whether the other issues get addressed in the future, it's easy to take them up and remove them. So we can do that. I think what we were looking at was having a bump on particularly either side that would sort of define the walking path coming out of the restaurant, and doing something that way. The other one we were talking about was it's not a speed bump, but a speed hump. And that's just a longer one. It's not like you go up and down.
Yes,
You
and
come
that'd
up
be
and then you go
fine. It
down.
was just something that gets their attention, that
Okay.
got to slow down a little bit when you get, because it's the main entrance is
Right.
like 6 feet, or maybe even less than that. I don't know where right-of-way starts or stops, but we have a right-of-way right past the main entrance to Waterman's Crab House, and kids running out, I don't know, somebody backing a pickup truck out there on that, gets a little anxious. I've just, it's been pointed out that it could be a safety issue, and I tend to agree with it, as much as I don't like speed bumps.
Right. The other thing we talked about and was the handicapped access with a speed bump. Somebody wants to use a wheelchair to get into the restaurant. We want to make sure we can accommodate that, so.
Sure, you don't
look at
want
the
to.
design.
Yeah, right.
So,
Very
okay,
good.
we'll
Thank you.
proceed with that.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Now, our next appointment,
Oh,
some guy by the
I know, it's
name of
been a
Herb
while.
Dennis. I don't know who this, maybe I'll recognize him when he gets,
Thank you, sir.
maybe I'll recognize him when he gets up here, but,
How's everybody doing?
sir, you want to introduce yourself?
I think you did a good job with it.
Welcome. Good to see you again. I hope you're feeling much better.
Feeling better. Have to go back out again, but hopefully I'll be done next time.
Good for you.
All right. I'm here to actually talk about the CorrectRx contract that we have for our inmate medicine. CorrectRx is the medication delivery vendor for the inmates' medication. Since 2009, Kent County Detention Center has contracted with CorrectRx to fill and deliver medication to KCDC for the inmate population. CorrectRx is a pharmacy service. CorrectRx Pharmacy services and fills delivery medications daily to KCDC Monday through Saturday. CorrectRx works with prom care on 55% discount rate of all generic medications, so well as 15% discount rate for branded medication, and deliver the medication the next day. CorrectRx, I can't see well. CorrectRx always has generic brands unless no generic substitutes on brand the medication requires to complete the prescription orders. CorrectRx also gives 100% credit for return of full, separately charged and unused solid medications. CorrectRx also provides the proper invoicing and paperwork to meet the criteria needed for the medication-assisted treatment program required by law. Staff is recommend sole source contract with CorrectRx due to the urgency of the delivery system within 24 hours and the discounted rates provided to Prom Care. KTC has been very satisfied with their services.
Having heard what our good warden has said, I'd like to make a motion to approve the renewal of the CorrectRx contract as presented by one of the best wardens in Maryland.
Thank you for
And I'll second that.
I thank you for that, but I think we all do a good job.
So, it's been a motion made and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thanks, Warden.
Thank you,
I'll
sir.
see you in Ocean City next week. It'll be a
Yeah, I'll
big
be there Saturday and Sunday. For Friday, Wednesday through Friday. Yeah, Wednesday through Friday, and then I have to come back for a party for Captain Wicks.
Well, we look forward to seeing you, and it's nice to have you back. I mean, I know you've been back, but it's nice to see you. Your health issues have been, for the most part,
Getting there. I'm getting there.
you're getting better.
I'm getting better.
Okay.
I've been in contact. Captain Wallace calls me every day.
No, I understand you're still in charge. I realize that, but it's nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
We knew you've been had some issues, and we're glad to see them taken care of.
Yes, thank you.
Good to see you.
And heard during this last budget process, we were, all three of us that actually sat here, we really had some tough issues to deal with and try to handle in order to balance the budget and to make things work and still make sure that we took care of our county employees to the best that we did. And I hope that, some of the things we had to do were not pleasant. And I hope that everyone understands that, and I think you do, because you and I have talked about it a little bit, but You know, we certainly recognize what you do is very important, and you're doing a good job with it.
Thank you. I do understand what you did, and I know how hard it was. But that don't stop the emotions of the staff.
No,
You know, but it is a business, and we got to make sure we take care of what's right for the whole, for everybody. And I don't want your job. I think it's very hard, and I understand your emotions with that. So we're going to try to mend the fences. Just give me time, and we're going to get it together, and everybody's going to be okay.
But we do value you and your staff.
I know you do.
I hope they know that.
I hope you do. I know they do. They do. We all appreciate you.
Very good. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Herb. Ms. Pat Merritt wants to talk about lease query software, whatever the heck that is.
Something that wasn't in our budget.
So I hate to end your day with a request for money, but here we go. So I guess there's a little background. In recent years, and the GASB's been very active, and GASB is a government accounting standards board, and they sit around and think of new creative ways that we should account for government finances, and they put in these new standards that require us to change our reporting models. So in recent years, they've introduced two new accounting standards that have to do with leases and subscription-based IT arrangements. And so, long story short, because of these standards, they're requiring us to report the present value of the minimum lease payments of the leases and the subscriptions, and the minimum lease payments over the life of the leases. So we could, because of enterprise and the subscriptions, the IT subscriptions that we have, we could approach close to 100 of these leases that we have to calculate these present value calculations for. And there's no way around it. It's a new GASB standard. It's a new footnote we have to have in the financial statements, and we have to do these calculations. So most everybody in our position that's having to account for these has opted for a software solution. You can do these calculations manually, but there's an opportunity for error. They're very involved, and the software solution is just the best way to go, quite honestly. So we've researched software solutions. We had a couple demonstrations from two different vendors. We're recommending the purchase of the cheapest option that we saw, and we can get pricing through the Allied States Cooperative Award. So to cut to the bottom line, the price of the software would be $10,320. We can't absorb it within our budget. I don't know if you've seen the finance budget, but it's really postage and supplies. So we don't really have any excess money for this. So we ask that you approve us to purchase this subscription, this lease query software for the leases and the subscriptions. From Lease Query.
From?
Using.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, yeah, I'm sorry, it's been a long morning.
Something called a contingency fund.
Yes. I'm requesting $10,320 out of the contingency fund to fund the first year of the Lease Query subscription.
Well, let me just say, I don't think I have to persuade John in any way, shape, or form, but the fact that you don't ask for much and have one of the more important jobs in the county. And the last time you give us a financial report, it was really a lot better than we anticipated.
Yes, it was.
That's right. And if she keeps bringing them in, we'll keep going to the contingency fund for it. So that's, the next one's got to be good too, Pat.
I was trying, okay, I think it will be. I was trying to remember, I think in 28 years, Ronnie, this might be the first time I had to ask for money. I really.
That's what I said. You don't ask for much. And you do a great job for us, so. I don't think I had to persuade John in that way, but I thought I'd throw it in there. So I'll entertain a
You have
motion.
nothing to do with my.
I understand that. I wouldn't want to change your mind, to have the job of changing your mind for nothing in this world.
Anyhow, I'd like to make a motion to sign the 3-year agreement with Lease Query and approve $10,320 out of contingency funds for the first year of the lease query contract.
We have a motion, and I'll second that motion. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patricia.
Patricia,
Have a wonderful day.
you do the same. County Administrator report.
Okay, so I have one item for you today, and this is just something for you to consider. There's not necessarily a for action unless you want to take an action. But this has to do with local projects that have been submitted for consideration in this year's Neighborhood Revitalization Program. This is with the Department of Housing and Community Development. Local governments are given the opportunity to comment if they would like. 3 projects have been submitted in Kent County for consideration of dollars. The 2 of them are community legacy grant applications. One is for $155,000. This is for Kent Attainable Housing, so that they can construct a home at 148 Prospect Street in Chestertown. The second community legacy grant application is for $75,000. This would fund another $75,000 in facade improvements in downtown Chestertown. And the third submission was a strategic demolition grant, and that is on behalf of Washington College in the amount of $500,000. They would like to demolish the structure at 800 High Street, which was donated to them. So you can either take no action, the applications go through, the process, and, we'll find out if they were awarded or not. Or you could submit a letter of support or opposition to any of these projects, and DHCD would take that into consideration when they award projects.
Personally, I don't have a problem with any of the projects that they're, so, I mean, I can see a benefit with all 3 of them. So if all they're looking for with us is a letter of support, I certainly wouldn't have a problem with that.
You can choose to write a letter of support, or you could choose to do nothing.
Well,
Nothing's required. They're just saying that you have the opportunity to give input.
Yeah.
I think it would be supportive and welcoming to offer a letter of support. So I'll make a motion that we send a letter of support for all 3 of the presented projects.
And I'll second that. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Excellent, thank you.
Very good. Public comment. Anyone have want to comment?
One little comment real quick, if you don't mind.
You help yourself, being you're our most.
Frequent flyer?
Most of the time, you're the only one in the audience, so we can't say no to you, John.
Okay, on the new middle school, if they build a new middle school out to work, there's a very good possibility that the old middle school will be handed back to you. Your hands will be pretty much tied because of the open space uses. So, I lived across from the old Board of Education building, the old high school there on High Street, and it fell down and had bats and birds and water running in and running out when it rained. Could we get a commitment that the school's getting back to you, that something would be done with it in a timely fashion?
Other than being torn down?
Well, the expense of being torn down may have to happen also, but.
Because I thought that's what, Tricia, wasn't that part of if they build it in Chestertown, eventually they were going to tear the old one down and make that the recreational area, right?
Yeah, if we build it, it would be like flipping the.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if we build it in Wharton, then we just
hand it back to you.
surplus it.
With respect to the board.
Suppose we don't want it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we have a choice. I think we're stuck with it.
I'm looking, every time I see those pictures of what it looks like right now, I cringe. I feel like, not to be disrespectful to Baltimore City, but I feel like I'm looking at an inner city school when I look at the bad shape that it's in.
Well, with respect to the Board of Education building, we took that And then we made multiple attempts to sell that. First, I think we sought bids and we didn't have any serious takers. Then we listed it with a real estate agent or a broker. We didn't have any serious offers. And then finally, we decided to put it out for bid again, and the college came in with a combination of cash money and scholarships.
Scholarships, yeah.
So we had that from, pretty much from the get-go. Our economic development director at the time worked on that to try to find a use or a purchaser for that. And it went through the bidding process twice, and it was listed with the broker once. So that's kind of the reason why that took. It wasn't for lack of effort by the county and the county commissioners.
I understand that.
It was, I think, the market, or just there was no interest in it.
Yeah. So, maybe.
Well, if it's given back to us, I can assure you, we're gonna have to do something with it. And it could be tear it down or whatever, if we can't find anybody that wants it. I mean, I'll be interested to see if this grant that they wanna tear down the old Dixon Valve building out here is one of the things they applied for, and, see how well that goes, and that could be an avenue, I don't know.
Yeah, because, I'm not saying anything, but my class was the first class that went all the way through the high school, so.
That's how it was, and I'm a year behind you.
Yeah, so that's cool.
You went to the 9th grade at this,
I started ninth grade
First
at
ninth grade class.
a brand new high school.
Yeah.
Back
well, you must have been in the same class with my wife, because she says the same thing.
There you go.
Yeah, she was in the 9th grade when it opened.
When it opened.
Yeah.
That would have been, you were 75.
Class of 75,
Yeah.
kind of sitting next to you, 76, but
Very good.
very good. So, you know,
Thank you for your comment, and we will certainly keep that in mind. Anyone else? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. We are